Hello, my name is Renee Shelburne, and today I'm going to be talking with you all about the foster care crisis. Through my education and for this class that I'm creating this project for, we've learned a lot about child abuse and neglect and the effects and the consequences that result and come from that, whether that be, directly impacting the children, the families, the parents themselves, the legal system, everything else involved. But I wanted to take a deeper look at what happens to these children of abuse and neglect after they're removed from those homes. And oftentimes, that's where the foster care system comes in. These children are removed from neglectful and abusive homes, and they don't have anywhere better to go. So they get put into the foster care system. So, what exactly is the crisis? According to childrensright.org, on any given day, there are over 443,000 children in foster care in the United States. And in 2017, there were more than 17,000 people who aged out of the system without having permanent families. Um, Other than that obvious huge number of children without a stable home, there are a few other main problems, however. Um, Aging out refers to those children who float through the system until they're 18 and no longer the state's problem. These children get removed from their home, they get put in a group home, they jump around from placement to placement, and none of them work out. They don't fit in with the families. Eventually, they turn 18. The state did their job. They're no longer they're officially an adult, and they're left out on their own with often very limited resources and help. Um, so the main problem starts with education, and I found some really shocking statistics here. By age of 26, approximately 80% of young people who aged out of the foster care system earned a high school degree or GED, but that compared to 94% of the general population. So you may think 80% is, not so bad, but when it's 14% less than everyone else, that's an unfair advantage. And then that gap for a college degree just gets even larger. It's only 4% of the foster youth that aged out compared to the 36% of the general population that gets a college degree. So, starting with this lack of education, lack of advancement in education, starts creating a spiral effect for, if they didn't go to college, how are they supposed to get a job? And if they can't get a job, how are they supposed to provide for themselves? And our society is so based on money. If you don't have money, it makes it very difficult to be a socially responsible member to society. So I did a little bit more research to better understand, how aging out of the foster care system can impact a child. And this research has shown that the foster care system does not provide adequate support and opportunities for youth to stay on the correct path that society may want them to be on to be successful, healthy, and in good legal standing. This particular article focused on the labeling theory to better examine the involvement that adolescents' role in the legal system might play in the social isolation, which leads to the higher levels of criminal activities among youth. Um, so, the labeling theory is the theory of how self identity and behavior of individuals may be determined or influenced by the terms we use to describe or classify them. So, if a student tells, or if a teacher tells another teacher that so and so student is from the foster care system, they're jumping around from home to home right now, they may not perform as well. That child hears them, they take on those classifications and behave in that same way. So again, it's just these constant spiral effects, these circles that these kids are forced to run through um, that eventually negatively impacts them in the long run. This research shows how inclusion in the foster care system is associated with lower likelihood of having graduated high school, um, which again, as I talked about in the previous slide, leads to less chance of getting employed, which increases legal activities because you got to be able to provide food for yourself somehow. You got to have somewhere to live. What else are you supposed to do? So I want to come up with some solutions. How can we negate this? How can we combat it? And I learned a lot about these CASAs before in other classes. So the CASAs being a court-appointed special advocate. According to their website, the National Court Appointed Special Advocate Association, together with its state and local member programs, supports and promotes court appointed volunteer advocacy so every abused or neglected child in the United States can be safe, have a permanent home, and have the opportunity to thrive. So that's the whole point. These children, they need the same opportunities as everyone else to thrive and to be successful in our society. And that's why this was created in 1977, to give these children who are going through this difficult time of abuse and neglect an advocate that is there to ensure that they're getting the best treatment possible. They have a network of almost 1,000 state and local programs, and have some great values listed here at the bottom to show that they really do care about the children. This is widely used, again, like I said, in the neglect and abuse cases. But typically, from what I understand, once that case is settled, the advocate goes away, and these kids don't get much more help from there. And I would like to, see how providing these children who go through the foster care system an advocate, a mentor, an advisor, someone that they can go to, ask questions about getting a job, how to write a resume, simple stuff that we may not that we may overlook as someone, these 18-year-olds who have aged out may not know what to do. So I continued doing some more research, and having someone whose sole purpose is to be there to support the child and fight for their best interest can significantly impact the future child. These advocates provide objective opinions to the court because they can spend more time on that single case. We know how overworked CPS workers are. We can't expect that they follow these children through the time that they're 18 years old to make sure that they do know how to write a resume and that they do know how to go on an interview. So that's where these advocates would come in and help these children out in those areas where they're lacking limited resources before. Also, they just provide a sense of support and stability for these children when they desperately need it. So this particular research article focuses on how a child's permanency is associated with the outcomes of being at greater risk for emotional behavior problems, homelessness, criminal activity, teen pregnancy. Those all things are all linked back to the child's permanency in their childhood. So the lack of permanency increases these risks. But it showed that the CASA advocates are an effective and evidence-based intervention, which is what we want to make sure that we're not just throwing something and hoping it works, that it is proven to be safe and effective. And like I said, CASAs are pretty widely used, but I want to get them integrated to work with the foster care system, and work alongside with it to continue with these children who are getting left behind and getting to fall through the cracks. One more source I found took a different approach, but I thought it was important because it's a little bit more preventative to prevent this crisis from getting, bigger or even more overwhelming. It focused on the parents of the foster children, and getting a formal or informal respite can impact the kinship and caring levels of children involved in the welfare system. So, giving these parents a break, when they need it, when they're feeling overwhelmed, giving these parents a night off, and having someone else come in and watch the kids, or even giving these parents their own advice for how to raise a kid or how to work with difficult kids or whatever, can greatly impact the relationship that parent has with their kid, which will obviously reduce the likelihood of them hitting their kid when they're getting frustrated, or being emotionally neglectful and just ignoring their kids. Some parents don't understand the emotional attachment that is needed with their child. Not everybody's different. So this source really showed how, giving these parents a respite, giving these parents a break, can be very helpful and promote positive experiences for both the children and the parents involved. So overall, you know, while the foster care crisis is a little overwhelming and needs to be addressed, there are things that we can do to try and limit it. And here are my references. And thank you for listening.